We got Dream Child in. Webmistress is in. Is anyone here? Yes, I'm here. William Wagener from the Kyoto Grand, 16th floor of the Kyoto Grand in downtown Los Angeles, 3 blocks from the criminal court building. Taking off my hat for you people that tuned in. Thank you very much. A couple of things happened. You probably all saw it on TV, but I can tell you what you didn't see on TV. You all saw a couple of security guards step forward and speak. You all saw Michael Amir Williams, who turned out to be the closest person to Michael since I think '08 when he went on full time. I never heard of this man before because, as you guys know, Michael's people all the people that are close to Michael keep it pretty quiet. They don't brag that, oh, I'm managing Michael or I'm his personal assistant. Part of employment with Michael means is you don't tell anybody. And basically, he was hired briefly, I guess, in '06 or '07 to catalog all the CDs and DVDs and videotape Michael has, because he had himself being videotaped a lot. And also, it was yesterday, the man that jumped up on the limo back in '04 with Michael, when Michael got on top of the limo. And he was working there, and I was told, I don't know if it's true, that he's working for Katherine Jackson and still doing work for her. But one thing you didn't hear about is there was a time today when they came out of the room and a sheriff held the door open during the break. And Katherine Jackson and Jermaine walked down the hallway, and they have sheriff's deputies on each side of them. So the fans had all stood up to honor them and respect the Jackson family, because let's face it, they've been through a horrific 10 years. These last 10 years have just been really horrific. And they honored them. But LaToya Jackson ducked out around behind the door up in the corner at the end of the hallway there. That's where this courtroom is. It's at the very end of the hallway. And the security guard for LaToya sort of stood there blocking, and I was wondering why he was standing there by himself. Well, I walked back towards her, and the sheriff deputy's holding the door open, and you could look right in, and there was Conrad Murray chuckling and kind of smiling and laughing and talking to one of his lawyers. And normally you wouldn't have seen that. They'd had both doors. There's 2 doors to get in that courtroom, but both doors were propped open. And a few people were still leaving, and I looked in and saw him smiling, and I thought, he always looks sober and scared when he comes down the hallway. And in there he was, chuckling with his attorney. And LaToya was behind this door, and I'm wondering, why is she hiding behind the door? So I kind of walked back and kind of peeked around the door as the sheriff's looking at me like, don't come too close. And she got on her cell phone. She was on her cell phone really quick, making a call to somebody. And I'll probably never know what was so important she couldn't wait to get to the break room. I did manage to give LaToya my foundation business card that says, for you can't see it out there, MJJIFF. I don't know if you can see that. Funding for the biopic documentary. I managed to give that card to her driver yesterday, but I doubt that he actually gave it to her. I did get it to her in the hallway today, and she took it and acknowledged it. But I think she really doesn't, the whole family is stressed. I mean, this is not a happy time for them. And when Dr. Conrad did not call 911, instead he called the security guard and said, you better get back here. It's had a bad reaction. Well, to me, that's malpractice. I mean, this guy's a heart doctor. He's a heart specialist. And he sees Michael dead, his eyes open, his mouth open like this. And instead of calling 911 for an ambulance, instead of getting the oxygen to him, that's why they had the oxygen tanks. Instead, he calls one of the security guards, who calls back to other security guards who are at Neverland, and one of them makes the 911 call. That just didn't go well with the jury. I talked to a couple of the public Michael Jackson fans that got in, and they looked at the jury, and at least 3 of the jurors did not feel good about that. They looked, I guess, sort of askance at, you're a doctor, and you didn't call 911? So I don't think that went over very well at all. One of the things I think we're going to see here is we heard part of the testimony today, but the testimony we didn't hear was from Eric Muhammad. Nothing, I don't think, was said about him today. Maybe tomorrow morning we'll hear something of him, but he doesn't appear to even be on the witness stand. He had been hired 4 days apparently before Michael died on June 25th. And he was very rude and very mean, according to 5 different Michael Jackson fans. One was named Chloe, one was Sharon, one was Samantha, and they all seemed to agree, this Eric Muhammad, and there was another gal, I can't remember her name, they all agreed that they had seen Michael like in the last 2 days before he passed away or was murdered. And they all agree this guy was not nice. Unlike most of the security guards are nice, he wasn't. He doesn't seem to even be on the witness list. And someone that is that different from Michael Jackson's security staff that are generally polite, firm, yes, they're firm, but they're polite. This guy apparently was less than polite, to the point of rudeness. So that testimony was not heard. Tommy's name came up and was quickly objected to, because you remember I told you already a month ago I was in the courtroom without Conrad there, and they agreed Tommy would not be called as a witness, and that I still quite don't get why Judge Pastor agreed and let both the prosecutor and the defense, they seem to be all friendly, lovey-dovey about agreeing not to let Tommy testify. Yet I think he'd been fired by Michael Jackson, and there's some people in the group here today that seem to think he was secretly hired back or something, but I don't think that's true. I think the real hitch here is going to be, why didn't the sheriff's deputies come forward with this tape? And we heard testimony from Michael's personal assistant that on the 29th of June, he met with the sheriff's deputies again, investigators, and he helped them retrieve the tape. Well, then suddenly it seems most of the tape is missing. And the only people that can make it go missing are the sheriffs, because they retrieved it. And this guy's testifying that. I would like to see the specific sheriff's deputies that took the tape put on the witness stand. I don't know if we're going to see that tomorrow. This trial is going to go on more than 1 week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Let me read the questions here. Okay, hello. Yeah, he was fired, and Frank came back into the picture. And now Frank is dead. And it took me, I've been trying to get Frank DeLeon's phone number for a long time, and all the people that had it just wouldn't give it to me. Finally, when I did get it, Frank DeLeon died. So, poor Michael, really, he they showed the contract, and Michael Jackson hadn't signed it yet. He should have signed it that night. Apparently didn't do so. Conrad Murray had signed it twice. But if you'd seen the friendly face, and if you were watching, you probably saw the AEG gal. I forget her name now, Judy something, an attorney. I'm sure Steffi or somebody knows what her name was. But she had this blonde, friendly, I'm here to help you, everything's fine kind of look. I'm the friendly face of AEG. And what it appears to me is AEG did not want to have any responsibility for Michael. They wanted him to have a second medical examination. Michael appears to have been stalling on that, but we haven't heard all the evidence yet. And yet here's Conrad Murray, who's raising issues, saying we're going to need this heart resuscitation equipment. We're going to need this at the O2 concert. And there was discussion yesterday about how many concerts. 31, I think, was the name I heard most often. But back when Michael was alive, I think what we heard is he agreed to 10 and then was stuck with 50. I'm looking at the overall picture. I'm thinking, look, the original trust and will has not been produced. I mean, the actual wet ink copy that Michael actually signed his name to. Not a Xerox copy of it, but the actual original wet ink trust and will. And I think when John Branca came in with a copy, and the judge in that case, I think it was Beckwith, I'm not sure, I can't quite remember, when that judge then said, okay, I'm going to accept a copy, nobody looked for the original. And that issue now was behind us. And I think someone should have stood up and said, we need to see the wet ink original copy. Because if Michael had fired John Branca, and we believe he did fire John Branca, and then destroy that copy and want to do a new one, that means John Branca would have a vested interest in bringing up an old copy that he saved. Even if he turned the original over to Michael after he was fired, he was supposed to turn over all his documents. But he might have saved a copy of that. Then we've got the wrong man in charge of the estate. That's where the first problem starts.
When the night has come